All right. Welcome everyone and thank you for coming to our showcase. We are going to show the MVP of our project for the Gridiron Survivor project. What is the project? The project is simply a way for me to create a course or kind of cohort, I guess, for individuals that are looking for an opportunity to get involved in the tech industry. A lot of folks are boot campers, career switchers, and they're just kind of left to fend for themselves. So this is a way to bring a corporate process to build a project, and that way these individuals can work as a team, understand what they're doing, and then also having myself and Mike, Mike Chan, is he's a CTO at a startup. Being able to oversee this and provide good feedback, code reviews, and things like that, pretty much like what we would do on the job. So I really wanted to simulate what working in the field would be like for these individuals. And so we were able to build a project for my friend Rudy, and this is what we got. And so I'm going to go first to talk about the sponsors that we have. So for this project, we have Use Pastel, Front End Mentor, and AppWrite. These are three sponsors for the project. We use them in various ways, but we couldn't have done this project without them. So thank you very much. Okay, and a few people are start trickling in. I know we. This is the best part is that a lot of these other individuals have full time jobs and things to do. And for me, I'm like, yeah, that's I understand that. Like, we're not requiring you to spend 8 hours on this, right? Just spend the time you can on it, but communicate with your team and allowing us to know like what's going on because that's a big part of working as a team. Okay, so I'm gonna go and show the site itself right now. Hold on, let me switch this first. Do-do-do-do. I'm gonna switch this so I can share my screen. Okay, so this is gridironsurvivor.com. This is the project that we've been working on, and this is the homepage right now. But before we go in and kind of show the demo of what we've built, Mike, can you tell us about the tech stack that we used?
Yeah, I love to. Before I tell you about the tech stack, I just want to say congrats, team. Pretty great job and well done on this. I'm excited about how the final product came out and excited for what it will become in the near future. So a little bit about the front end, the tech stack that we use for that is that React to build a user interface, along with Next and to help with server-side rendering and routing. Also, for the components that are implemented right now, as you can see on the screen, they were built from Shad CN and documented in Storybook. And also for the backend, we use AppWrite for users' authentication and to store the football teams they chose. And the entire project is deployed onto Vercel.
Sweet. Thank you, Mai. There is definitely more that we're going to add on to this, but currently that's what we have. Some things that we'll be adding on is like TypeScript, um, Playwright for end-to-end testing, React testing library to test things, and then other tools and things that will help us be more efficient and allow this application to be more robust. Okay, so let's jump right in. Okay, so the demo today, it's a live demo, is demoing what we've built for the Gridiron Survivor application. It is a Survivor application where the user can go in and choose a team and then save it. And then for future purposes, it shows them what they have. So today, we're going to do the registration. It's going to register them into our database. I'm going to go and select the team. It's going to save that into the database. I'm going to log out and then log back in with the new account I created, and then it's going to show the team that I chose. Okay, so I'm going to use a fancy email here. Nobody should copy this, please. And a password that is very secure. I'm not going to tell you my password. And I cannot register because my password doesn't match. It works. Look at that. It works. Okay, so now that I'm in, I have two choices: Vikings or Cowboys. The reason why this is big is because there was a bug that I found live that took out Ryan. This tag here, the
Yeah,
max
I
height.
was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so
Let me
that
fix this.
yeah, so anywho, don't worry about that. This is, bugs that will happen. And so now I get to choose a team, right? Vikings or Cowboys. I don't like any of them, but if I had to choose, I'll choose the Cowboys. So I'm gonna choose the Cowboys. Right now there is no notifications or anything. There are notifications in the council, but we are, still work in progress. And then I'm gonna sign out. So once I sign out, I can go back in with this account, which oh, was that the email I used? I think so. Okay. Now I logged in and the Cowboys is chosen. So yay, did that. We did the authentication. We also saved the picks, and these teams are coming from a database, a collection as well. We only did two for now to kind of prove the concept and get that going. But all this functionality was built by the team. There are definitely more functionalities that we wanted to do, but because there was a set deadline for this MVP, we stripped out some scope and some features so that we can meet this deadline. We had to set up the infrastructure, we had to set up the code base and all of that. And I think that was a matter of about 2 months or so. We did a lot of planning for the previous 2 months as well before that. So 4 to 5 months total because of holidays and Christmas and everything. Um, Oh, it must have been longer than that because it's May already. so, so it was definitely longer than that. But we definitely took a lot of time, and there's a lot more features that we are going to be adding. Um, but that is what we have. I mean, I can choose this team as well, and then we could do the same thing, right? And then I'll go in. I don't know if I typed in my password correctly. I did, and there you go. I chose the Vikings. Awesome. Any comments or about the site itself from any of the team members?
Well, number one, thank you for going through it for everyone. I popped in late, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'm stoked for more. I'm stoked to get going and keep building out and fix all the little bugs first, and then move on. Right?
Yeah. Yep. There's gonna be some bugs at the beginning, but um, we are gonna do an audit and then continue to build up the infrastructure and then build out features. Cool.
Can I ask the team something?
Uh
Who knew what a football survivor app was before? I certainly didn't.
I
I had to look it up.
I honestly had no idea, and I play fantasy football every year. This is the first time that I have heard of this format.
man.
I know that
Yeah.
it's super
Man.
interesting. I'm still not 100% sure how it works, and we built this, and I'm still not sure how the format works as far as the
We
actual
It feels
fantasy
simpler
part.
than fantasy football to me.
Yeah, we will go through this. ESPN, Yahoo, other applications have this working already, but in a different way, right? In their own way. So we're definitely building a groundbreaking solution for our friend Rudy, so that he doesn't have to do this with spreadsheets anymore. So cool. All right. Next, Richard is going to showcase Storybook for us.
Can you see my screen?
I can now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So I'll be going through Storybook, and basically what Storybook lets us do is it lets us build the components with Storybooks, and we're able to take those components from Storybook as stories, and we're able to pull them in as regular components within our application, and we're able to reuse those components again and again. And the neat part about Storybook here is that you're able to see the actual physical code while also seeing the actual UI of it. So like let's say we add a hover to it, you're able to see the click me. And if you saw Shashi's demo earlier with our current production of our application of our MVP, you can see that the button matches exactly what our button had with our website. So it's pretty neat. You're able to pull those in from Storybook. And what's so great about Storybook is that when you create the components for each component, it also auto generates that documentation for you. So, well, that kind of leads to my talk later about documentation, so I won't go too much into it. But basically, what Storybook does is that, let's say you add in a certain attribute to your component or prop to your component, it shows it, it lists it, and it breaks that down into separate components or smaller components, let's say. So looking at this example, you can see that it says like, hey, the name is source, or the small description, and then it shows like the default setting if we have one. And for phase 2, we're probably thinking of switching more focus in the testing aspect of it. For phase 1, for MVP, we focus primarily more on just the creation of the component and just making sure that we were able to successfully implement it into our application and make sure that was functional, and it was able to work together with the other aspects of the application without breaking anything. So that's probably what we're going to be focusing on a bit more, maybe iterating on our current existing components, maybe looking into how ShadCN works together with Storybook a bit more, with maybe thinking about Playwright as well. And we're also probably thinking about toggling with dark mode a bit and light mode, maybe in the later journey of phase 2 as well. And yeah, that's all I've got for Storybook. Does anyone have any questions in regards to that?
I know you kind of mentioned, and this is really where you showcase your skills for me, is your documentation writing.
Mhm.
I know you mentioned that it has some kind of enhanced documentation or integration there. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit? I know you said you were also going to talk about it later, but since we're talking about Storybook specifically.
Mhm. So what did you want me to touch on specifically, Jason, in terms of like the auto-generated documentation for Storybook?
Well, I guess break that down for me a little bit as far as like the auto generation. Like, what does that entail? Like, can you show me an example of that? Because that was one feature that I was super unfamiliar with when we were going into it. I think that that's a huge one, at least from my perspective. Any sort of like auto like generating of anything, as long as it's accurate. Are we finding that it's been accurate so far too for what we need?
So let's say, honestly, I'm a bit iffy on the auto documentation too. I need to put in some time to look at that as well, because as far as what I understand, what it's doing, or what my understanding of what Storybook is doing when it comes to the auto-generated documentation, is that when you create the component itself, it generates that documentation for you. And there's a field in Storybook where it generates, where you're able to like put in like, hey, I want you to auto generate this documentation for me. And it's like, okay, so I noticed that you have these props, and it's like, okay, these props have these certain attributes to it, so add it to the documentation. But I know that you should be able to customize it a bit, but I'm not sure of what level you're able to customize it to.
You can customize it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the comments. It's all how the story is constructed. You can do that, and then you can also have them be toggled and all the available values. Right now, this one is just a text field right on the right. Like, you can have it where it's strict, and then you can add TypeScript in where it's like, okay, only these certain teams are available, and this is what's accepted. So we'll get there too. We'll get more granular with these types and prompts and everything, so that it's very strict.
I'm really excited to implement the visual testing with Storybook.
Yeah,
That
too.
blew me away when I saw it, and it was just, this is amazing.
Yeah, I was just reading about that too. It seems like there's so many really awesome features. I'm glad that we're using it now so I can see what some of these things are moving forward. I'd love to keep using it.
I'm definitely using Storybook in my future applications.
Yeah, and good thing is we're on the latest version, Storybook 8, so we have all the latest and greatest, and we will start like utilizing that. So cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, so the next item that we wanted to do was just do a quick retrospective. Retrospectives are a great way for us as a team or any team to understand what you did well, what you did not, what you can improve on, and then what you should start doing for the next time. Like there is like no like we don't want to talk about all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and then all this. It's just open. Like whatever is brought up, we talk about that. Um, but I think the one thing that, or not one thing, there's a lot of things I want to bring up, but something that I did want to bring up right away was how was your experience? Like this process, Richard and my started with this group back in October, I think, or November, and then Jason and Ryan and Mia came on later. So they have it's a little different experience, but the whole process altogether, right from the beginning, we said like we y'all were okay with this being like a very strict corporate process where we learn stuff, where we're going to build things, and it's just not like a hackathon project where it's like it's just getting going. Like, I mean, granted, like you saw the MVP, there was not that many features in there because I do want to show that too. Um, Actually, the GitHub is public and everything. It's all open source. A lot of their PRs that they posted out, if you look at them, there's like 20 comments, 50 comments in there. It wasn't like, oh, hey, it's good, looks good to me, let it go. No, it's like, hey, you need to fix that. This prop is wrong. This construction of this component's incorrect. That you need to fix this so that it's more maintainable and all that. So I guess this is a very broad question, but how was your experience so far with the Gridiron Survivor project?
I'm happy to go first if no one else wants to jump up.
Just go, man. You
Yeah,
just go.
have at it.
Just go. Yeah.
So I wanted to start with what went well for me and my experience overall. Number one, Shashi kind of talked a little bit about it, but the PRs and being so thorough, it's a completely new experience for me. And he basically said like, this is the standard. This is what you should aim to and grow towards. And for me, someone that's basically really only done his own development so far, it was a huge, I don't want to say learning curve, but just like a learning opportunity. And it's been really good because I've noticed now that the way I'm thinking about writing is different because it's taking those into account, as well as testing, right? Like that's a whole other ball game now that I've never seen a course or anything recommend learning is testing, because it's maybe it's not fun or attractive and flashy, but like it's a core part of the corporate
It's
thing.
not
It's
fun.
not. It's not. We experienced that ourselves. We experienced that merge conflict and everything, but Shashi got us through everything with his tough love teaching. But in my opinion, that's some of the best you get. So that went really well. The team's communication continued to rise through our time working through the phase one. So it was just a really good opportunity. Like, I'm stoked to keep learning, and I think the fact that it's not so much a hackathon environment, coming from someone who was just in a cohort that was only 6 weeks and had that hackathon feel to it, having those two experiences side by side, I learned a lot. And this is a really nice, more, I guess, corporate-esque environment. If is that accurate, Shashi? And that's what you're going for? Yeah. So, what didn't go well? I think I could say personally, but I think overall as a team, and this kind of bleeds into what we could improve for next time. It's sort of estimating the work, properly estimating the work that needs to get done and how much time is going to go into it. And so these really thorough code reviews and everything like that really came into play, right? It's something that I didn't know I was going to go back and forth about a simple thing, right? like I thought building a button would be so quick, and it was. But then the testing, right? And like that was my first time building using testing, and I used the wrong test library.
Yeah,
I used,
and even to that point too, it got to the point where I was like, we have a deadline, and why don't you just do one happy path test and let's go? Because I would have stopped you and you would have wrote 10 more variational tests, because that's what you wrote was 10 different variations of the button, right? So you got to write a test for all of them to ensure that it breaks that one button variation that you changed or whatever. Whoever changes it broke because it took a different prop or it added a different value or something that wasn't supposed to be there. It catches that. So yeah, and then that I just want to allude that to y'all is that this is just like the beginning of testing, and it was to the point where I was like, okay, I understand. Like it's difficult to pick up, and y'all are struggling. Let's stop that. Let's just go. Let's finish this up. We'll come back.
yeah, I think that, but that learning what goes into it, right? Again, building a button for me,
Yeah.
not a problem, but doing it in this fashion, like I'm gonna now know how to better gauge my estimates with how long a feature might take, right? And obviously, like as we all get better with testing, we'll all just keep growing and getting better and better at it. So I think as a team, that's really what's going to improve, and our time management is really where we need to improve the most. That was probably the worst part. Was we had Richard and Carlos and you, like you all were up late last night and just grinding at it for the
Various
last day.
times.
Yeah, the last
Carlos
2 days.
literally just fell asleep from 2 days ago, like right before we
Literally.
started this.
Literally, I don't know where he went, dude. It's okay. It's okay. I don't know where he went.
Like we don't want that. We don't want the hackathon thing. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. Is now all of us having a better grasp on.
Yeah,
what
our
this
friend
takes.
Braden said that the concepts of testing and patterns involves are more challenging than grasping basic programming concepts. It sure is. I think. I mean, at the same time, like this is just the basics of testing so far. Like, uh, we haven't gone into like writing code that's testable, writing code that's isolated that you can test, because then you're going to like keep decoupling code and all that. Like the code that you wrote, Richard, like a lot of it, I was like, it's nitpicky, but we need to take it out, make it its own local function so we can test it on its own, even though it's all grouped up in one. If you take it out, then we can test that individually. Then you don't have to test the whole entire page with all this functionality. You could test it pieces at a time. TDD, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna blow that one out, dude. No, Braden.
I think for me, just reflecting on the testing and stuff, where Ryan already's alluded to it, in a self-taught, that's in any of the programs, even usually that's like the last thing to be learned. And I feel like I'm almost reverse engineering my learning because it's such a priority in so many businesses. It kind of makes me wonder why that's not a focus for a lot of the teaching. Like that should be implemented first, like learn something, then test it out, then move on to the next thing, test that out. So you're learning the testing of each feature or function as you're going. I again, just kind of reflecting on my learning process, I wish I had thought to do that. And I think moving forward, as I do, I will be, walking through some of the testing and stuff and talking to who's very knowledgeable about that. I already talked to her about that, but well, in comparison to me, but that's been the biggest thing. Ryan already sort of touched on a few of the things that I was going to talk about too, so I don't want to be redundant, but I think the biggest thing for me was coming into a team that already had a stride and trying to sort of pick up momentum with that. In our existing code base, I'm so used to just building on my own. And again, you're reteaching yourself. And that for me was a big learning curve as well. So I thought communication was amazing. And I think just the vibe in the Discord channel with the team is very positive and supportive. I can't speak highly enough to that. And I think just looking at how Carlos went for 48 hours straight and just like disappeared on us is just sort of a reflection too of like the dedication that everybody had to this, but also sort of remembering, know when to take a couple minutes to recharge, because you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and to speak about that's why I always tell you guys is don't burn yourself out on this. Like I told Carl, I mean, I did tell Carlos, I said, hey, there's these features that are missing, but just do this one and then you're good. You don't have to worry about these other things that you're trying to add in because it's going to add more scope and stuff. He said, no, I want a challenge. I want the challenge. And I said, okay, time box yourself, for an hour. And after that, just don't do it anymore. But he kept going. And I was like, okay, like, this is, this is a project for a client 100%, but I'm not trying to have you guys burn yourself out or all that. Like, you do it when you have the time available, but at the same time, like, we had this deadline, and that's why I cut a lot of scope out, and I said, no, don't do that. Like, we're ready to go, we're going to showcase this, just do this piece and we're good. We'll come back later and make it better. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. And that's the thing that every team member will need to understand is, um, nothing is going to be perfect. Like, there are certain steps and milestones you have to reach. And as long as you get a foundation down, or if it is like truly a blocker, then yeah, you got to do it. But if there's a way to like simplify the feature so that you can just come back and do it in a phase two, then let's do that. Because there's not a lot of time, right, for any project and any feature or whatnot. So that's where the learning is coming in, is understanding to scope your work. I'll be honest that the tasks that I wrote up, and sometimes Mia wrote up, they weren't that descriptive, or like they didn't have a lot of details in there. It's because I don't have time to write it either. It's just like, here's a title, whatever, ask me questions if you are unclear, right? So that's where you have to come back to me or Mia and ask, like, hey, a clarification, do I do this, do I do that? And some people do, which is perfect, because then I'll be like, no, don't do that, just leave it. Or yeah, you need to do that, right? I think there was one, I think Ryan asked me for one thing, and he's like, oh yeah, this doesn't work. I think I'm just gonna put you to phase two. And I said, no, you need to do it. And he's like, oh, okay. But sometimes I'll be like, no, you don't need to do it, because like I can see that there's an alternative to it and we can work around it.
Yeah, I think with thought it was really interesting, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm like itching just to get in our code base and clean things up because
Yeah.
I don't want to move on to phase two too much until it's not. But maybe that's also me like seeking perfection at or close to it, which is also a struggle, right?
Yeah, it is. Okay, so anybody else have any questions or any thoughts? I have a ton of questions. I'll ask just a few.
I have a couple thoughts I wanted to
Okay.
say first about my experience with phase one. So looking back, it was a wave of emotions. I don't know how the rest of you guys felt, but I started up here. I'm like, easy. You want me to do a lot? No worries. I've done that before. This. But somehow, like going into the project, I'm like, okay, maybe I don't got this. And it went even deeper. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should call it quits after a while, because it was just a wave of emotions. But I'm glad that we got it done to where we are, and definitely couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you for being like a very good, approachable team members, positive, like you guys said, that I can ask questions and be like, oh, I have this blocker. Anybody know? Or like, hey, we done this mistake before. Don't do that. Do this instead. This
Yeah.
helps revert it back or something like that. So I love the collaboration that we did have, and you really easy to help each other out. I also think that what I could definitely do better, because like you said, Sashi, all of us are came. Well, I myself came from a bootcamp background. I did everything myself, and what I need to do better for going next to the next phases is to silo the duties. I was built from when I was working on login. I was building out the component. I was building buttons and inputs so I can make sure that it works. But I had to remember silo my duties and don't do that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I will definitely carry going forward. But I learned a lot along the way, and it was definitely worth it. Although it was challenging, it was a wild roller coaster ride, but it was really fun though. So I'm glad that we all made it this far, and I'm really excited to keep going with you guys, keep learning, and keep trying to make this product better.
So I'd like to offer my thoughts as well on my experience for the project. For me, I would say I learned so many things, but if I were to focus on one aspect of it, the biggest one would be communication. Just
Mm,
knowing how to
mm,
communicate with
Mhm.
text only, because most of our team members, actually all of our team members, are usually like we're spread around the globe or America, I believe. And so just having to, well, it's not even just a time thing, it's more of just having to break that nuance of, okay, so this is what they put in the channel, but is my interpretation of what they said the correct interpretation of what they were actually saying? And it's difficult to get that aspect of communication until you do video calls, but that's not something you can just constantly do. I can't just be like, oh, hey, Jason, you're at work right now, but can we just jump on a voice call and just hash this out for like an hour?
yeah.
I would do that with you, Richard, though, if you wanted to do that. I think that one thing that you just pointed out though was everybody's communication skills were well enough to know if they needed clarification too. If there was something in the chat and you needed it clarified, nobody was afraid to ask that. And I to everybody's benefit, and I applaud everybody for being able to do that, because a lot of people wouldn't, and you just wing it, which ends up turning into something else. So I like that you brought that up, because communication was, I thought it was really, really good, considering none of us know each other.
Yeah, and I will be honest with people that are watching. It was not good at the beginning. At the beginning, it started okay, and then it started to drift off. And then in January, February, when we started up again, it was okay, and then it dropped off. I think what I sensed was there was, from my end, I didn't put a deadline to things, because I was like, oh, we'll just free flow and kind of do it, right? But that was a mistake, because when you don't put deadlines or you don't set goals for things in life, you don't make a priority, right? Anything in life, you just don't. And so I saw that and I said, okay, we had to set a goal. We had to set a goal, and it has to be achievable. And the one of the things that I wanted everybody to learn too was that we have a short deadline, or we have a deadline. We cannot fit everything in. We have to figure out what we can take out and what we can live with when we launch this for the MVP. And that is a whole learning process, because on a job you'll do that as well, where there's a huge feature. Can you get it all done? You need to communicate if you can or not, and you need to do it early, right? If you estimated it, then you need to be honest and say it right as soon as you can when you figure that out. And once I prompted that and things got going, then yeah, the communication sped up and things got going, and um, like people really started to step up and start going and getting things done. And that was great, because that is pretty much what you're going to need if you go into the engineering field. Is, like I also said too, is everybody can see your efforts, whatever you do and what you don't do. We can see if your full-time job and stuff, we totally get it, right? That you're gonna have limited time, but with the time that you have, and if you have vacations and stuff, like, you need to communicate that so that we know, because that's what did happen. Chris went on vacation, so I had to load balance him and push Richard to help the back end. And then when he came back, I think Jason was doing Journey's conference, and I said to Jason, "You cannot help us anymore. You're too busy." So I switched Richard back, and Richard helped again. And then, there's a balancing act, and we need to know the schedules and whatnot. And so we were to load balance people around to finish the goal. And at the end, I think it was the UX that was behind, because we got caught up on the components and testing and all that. And I said, screw it, like, just write one happy path, and we need to get the pages out there, because backend is pretty much ready. The functional side is, the APIs are being built. We need the UX so we can still get things going. And so we pivoted again to have some people help. And then, like, that's what the team is, right? You have to understand your resources, that we can move people around if we have to. Even though Richard was our technical documentation engineer, he did everything. He went around everywhere. He just had that flexibility and availability, which is great. Others have jobs and stuff like that, and that's okay. and that's why it was nice to have someone like Richard that was available, that can do all these things to get us through to our goal. But like, it was nice to see that and all that. Okay, so now let me ask you guys now. Okay, hard question. What is something that we can improve on, or not yourself? Okay, a team wise. Like, you don't want to call out individuals. You never do in a retro. You want to call out the team, and if it is an individual, you don't call them out. You just say, hey, I as a team, we should do this better.
I'd like to go first.
Richard?
So I think we could, and this is also something I need to work on too, but finding the line between over communication and not communicating enough. It's like knowing what to communicate to the team and knowing how to communicate that, and being able to tell the team like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I'm working on, this is how long
Mhm.
I've been working on this for, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what I've attempted with this task, this is here are the steps I took, please advise, or something along those lines. I think that's something, like you mentioned before, Shashi, where once you put in that deadline, communication started to speed up a bit. And
Mhm.
but I think that's something we can all improve upon still, and it's not something that's like objectively like, hey, this is the right way to do it. It's something that you have to grow into and learn through experience and doing it more.
Cool.
I agree with what Richard said, and I think just back to the communication thing too is, I guess we could all probably just work on being a little bit more self-aware of like maybe what the limitations are, and then not disclosing it, but communicating that. Shashi, you had to ask me or kind of tell me like, hey, you have journeys going on right now. Like
Mhm.
this is too much. It's too much bandwidth, which that was hard for me because I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, it was the right choice. So I think having somebody in leadership that is able to manage that is great, but I think it still falls on us to be able to acknowledge and do it before it gets to you. So that would be my thing for everybody.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of that and off of Richard too, because I think during phase one we were blocked a lot. I think implementing
Yeah.
deadlines for ourselves would be helpful, and then if you have any blockers, we could definitely jump in and be able to help each other out too. So implementing deadlines for ourselves for the next phases.
Yeah, definitely agree with the deadlines. Overall, I think I can only speak for my team, the front end UI UX team, uh, to just communicate more. Maybe have like a weekly catch up for us, and really try to not. We don't have one person overseeing it all. Well, we do with Sashi, but try to hands off, right? So like we need to self delegate who takes what, and they need to meet those expectations with those deadlines, right? And
Mhm.
if they're not, then it goes into communicating, right? I had a cohort wrap up last week this time, and I was like, "Hey, I'm out for this day. Like, I'm just not available. Don't um, and things like that." And I think it just, or even I've been trying to be more transparent with when I'm available or not, because yeah, I work full time, right? So, and there's other things going on. So that's definitely the biggest thing we could do moving forward, is continue the transparency, I think, too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Communication is always key in everything that you do in your relationships, everything, right? And that it just goes a long way. But to Ryan's point, okay, I mean, this ain't no Easter egg no more. I told you guys as many times, okay. There's certain things I don't do and say to you guys so that y'all step up and do it yourself, right? Like what you just said, like our cohort, our pod, the UX team needs a individual to step up, then you step up, right? Like that's what I don't want to tell you guys to do that. Like it needs to come out of you guys. Sometimes I'll nudge and say, hey, like, can you take over this, right? Like I do lean on M a little bit more because she has experience, but she has told me that she is busy and she's gonna start to take a step back. And I was like, that's totally cool, but she wants to support the project, right? And so that's why I don't force more things on her because like she's got a full-time dev job. She's just doing this to get experience and to learn on stuff. And so if anybody else wants to step up, totally do it. Like do it, step up, own it. But when you do it, please like stay consistent with it. And everything else, like if you want to do something, like if you want to do more meetings or get-togethers or whatever, just ask. Right? There is no or yes. Like the only no is the one that you didn't ask, right? I would say like if you didn't ask, it's a no already. But if you ask, you don't know if it can happen or not. So that would be my thing is if you want to do some powwows or whatever. Obviously, meetings are tough because meetings not waste, but take a lot of time and coordination, all that. But if it's like an impromptu or like it's like, hey, I want to do a once a week thing with the front end engineering team where we just talk about next and look at the APIs. Go for it, like do it. And if we join, we join. If we don't, we don't, right? And so you got to take some initiatives on improving yourself, improving your team, and all of that. And if you find something cool or you want to implement a feature or something, bring it up. Like we'll put it in our backlog and queue it up to be worked on when the time is right. Cool. Anything else that you feel that could have improved?
Know your limits. I think someone said it before. Yeah. Know your limits. Don't push it. It's something I learned, and I will
Yeah.
forever be taking on moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like what my was saying too. Ryan says know your limits, but also know the scope of your work, right? Like that's one of the two biggest things that is tough as an inexperienced person in anything that you do. You want to complete it all, or you want to do it all in one shot, and it's like
That was
okay. And then when we did the sprint planning, y'all were like, "Oh, half a day, 1 day, 3." I'm like, "Hey, it ain't gonna take you 1 day." You don't know what's coming. You don't know the merge conflicts that's gonna happen, right? You don't know all this stuff. You don't know the type of code reviews that me and Mike do. Like you're gonna get it.
not
And then
just
when it
that, but like
happens,
create this one thing, and your job is to do that one thing,
yeah,
not
it's very
do
hard.
extra things.
Yeah,
It's so difficult. Coming
yeah,
from a self-taught that just does everything myself, like I just
yeah,
okay, this has to get done. I'm just gonna fix it, and you're like, no, stop doing this,
yeah.
because I kept trying to sink them into my PRs. He's like, open another
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. I always call it out too. I'm like, why are you going so far, bro? Like, you gotta remove this. But there is a reason though. There's a reason that I do that because these features are very small now. But eventually, if you go work for a big corp, like you'll have your own UX team, you'll have your own back end team, your own front end team. Some companies do both, do all full stack, everything, right? But you're still gonna do one thing more than another thing. But the reason why is then that right now you're growing very fast in one area, right? It's going to help you grow. And then let's say Ryan's like, hey, I want to expand to the back end now. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll switch you. Your role is now software engineer. And the UX will switch to somebody else, but don't go touch it now. Like you can't touch it no more. The other team's gonna touch it now. Your role is focused on this. The reason, and another reason is also most of the times the tasks that you get will be single focus and it not single role focus, but it's like, hey, you're only touching the sign up, okay? Just a sign up. Don't go touch the login. Don't go touch the weekly picks. Don't touch that. I told this task. What does it say? Just adjust the sign up. Okay, it's a progress. It's a process. We're doing this one first, and then we're gonna move on, right? So it's the mindset of okay, this is the scope of work. Let me focus and do this one really well because guess what? You have to add unit testing onto it. You have to add end tests on it. You have to do the code reviews to it, and you keep it siloed. And then when you get that done and it's fully flushed out and really well and built out, then we will move on to the next item. There when the feature looks small, it's not small, it grows exponentially because there's so much behind it. As you're building almost an enterprise application, right? There's so much more to it than that, so it takes more time, it takes more stuff. Obviously it's hard to it's easy to overestimate, but it's hard to underdeliver at that point when you don't have that knowledge yet.
I to what you were saying as far as like that incrementing of steps. I think again, just coming from doing it all by myself, that like if I could say anything to anybody as a precautionary tale, like that is not like being self-taught and just building a project all the way through and just nope, you're done, deployed, there it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so inaccurate to what it is actually like in an actual like site on a job. And I would love if anybody's listening as far as the education process, again, like implementing some of these real world scenarios into the learning so that people are gradually going into it, or again taking the steps, testing it, doing those types of things. So honestly, that was like so sobering for me to come into just right out of the gate like that. That I think that's what also tripped me up, because again, you're reteaching yourself. So if more people were building educational or curriculum towards these types of things, I feel like all of us would be better off. So this has been really good.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jason. Like the one reason why I created this group is because I wanted to be different. I wanted to be realistic, but I also wanted to be different from like tutorials and things that are taught at boot camps and self-taught. And I hope that that is what it is that it's like Ryan said, it's hard, tough love, but guess what? I'm not that tough. Once you go work for a tough manager, you're gonna be like, damn, Shashi was pretty easy actually.
Jokes on you, Sashi. We're never leaving.
Yeah, we're never getting jobs
Wait,
now.
wait. The whole point of this is so that somebody that's listening and lurking hires you onto their team. Okay, you're not staying. You're not staying for long. So if anybody is hiring, these individuals are available. They are looking for jobs. That's the whole point of this project, is to get them the experience, to set themselves apart from the competition, and to kind of showcase what we're building and what they're learning. And all of that. So yeah, hopefully y'all don't stay long.
That's the goal. Yeah, I like we said it before, but it's been really good and eye opening and seeing what we maybe are missing in our skill set that we didn't know about. Again, for me, that's definitely the testing.
Well, that's the
Because
thing, though. All of us came into this with a deficit. And I feel like having all of these things being thrown at us has really given us the opportunity to look at those things. And I think the real learning for me is like addressing it. You see it, acknowledge it, address it, fix it, and then like move forward from it. Like that's the whole point of learning. If you just keep in that cycle of not doing it, again, you're at that deficit again. So
Yeah.
it's been fun though. Thank you, Shashi, for putting this together.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts from you guys before I have mine? Wait, are you talking, Jason?
did I? Oh, I thought I was unmuting. I just wanted to acknowledge you doing this for us, because again, knowing that there is this deficiency in the curriculums or the learning that's
Mhm.
out there for new devs, huge opportunity. So I think anybody that has an opportunity to do something like this should take it. And I appreciate that you presented it to us.
Thank you. All right, closing thoughts. This phase one was longer than I expected, for sure, for everybody, right? But at the same time, it was longer than I expected because there was no deadline. so, so it's like this is what we get, right? Um, but it was a learning for me as well to understand that. I've worked with juniors and inexperienced individuals before, and it is very common to what you all are going through. And this is exactly why I wanted to build this and help and run this. And I can tell you that if you look at the GitHub, I committed zero code. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I committed the release. Okay, that's all I did. That's it, like one line, two lines. Intentionally, I stayed hands off. I would help these individuals and guide them and do pull requests, reviews, and all that stuff. But when they got stuck, I did not code. I stayed true to being hands off and being more of a hands off engineering manager. That way they can learn and grow and all this stuff with it. Obviously, there are stopgaps where we want to make sure that the quality of code and implementation is there, and we'll continue to do that. But it is very difficult to do that when I am still an engineer and does code every day. But my whole goal was, no, this team is going to learn and fail together, succeed together, grow together, and all of that. So I hope for everyone that was involved with this project that you learned something from this. The objective was to learn the soft skills, to learn the team skills, to learn like how it is to work for a company that has like a big process like this in place. Like this is just the beginning. I will be honest with you. This is kind of the easy part. This is the easy part, y'all. Like the hard part's coming where it's more stringent, and moving forward we are going to be more strict on the commits and going to add TypeScript in, be very stringent with that. Add JS docs in so you document all your functions and stuff, because we are open source, so we need to document our functions and everything that we can. We're going to have unit testing in place with React Testing Library. We're going to have um, end-to-end testing with Playwright. These things, like think about this, right? You're adding one component, okay? It's not a 5-minute thing anymore. It's going to be a couple of days because you have to write the unit test, the end-to-end test. You got to test that all out, make sure it all works, all the variations and all that. So that is what we're going to get to. But first off, we're going to go back and clean up our code base and clean up the things that the bugs that we have, and all of that, because I want this to be a solid foundation. And we were able to get this MVP, but now we got to clean it up. And then we're going to start designing. Okay, so phase two. Phase two, after we clean up stuff, Jaina is our designer. She's going to design the admin dashboard. She's going to design the admin dashboard. We're going to flush out the weekly picks so that it's going to have the actual schedule from the NFL and then all the teams listed. And then you can choose the one you want. Also, user is going to be able to sign up with magic links. We'll see if we get to the text notifications, email notifications. I think that is something we really want, at least one, maybe text first. So there's a lot of bells and whistles coming. And then also, I'm going to have Jaina build a marketing landing page. So it's not just a login. It's going to be a landing page that says, what is an NFL Survivor pool, right? And what is our application going to do? Just a quick one pager to kind of showcase what we do. So we're going to try to complete the cycle and get it going, because summer is coming up. We're all going to be busy. Nobody's going to have time anymore. So I really want to get this out, because the goal is the NFL season is coming up and it's going to start in September. They start doing stuff in October, August, but we got to get it going and get it tested and all that, because Rudy wants to use this. So that is the next goal. It's a deadline that we cannot miss. Like this is something that we're going to build for. And so that the fun stuff is coming. All the setup, all the grinding, all that, like it's going to get there. But I'm also going to talk to Mia. I think we are, because you know how we had like a MVP deadline. Usually we do 2-week sprints or monthly sprints, and those are the deadlines. We are probably going to do that. That way you have a deadline. Like it's probably going to be a month, like, or we'll see, 2 weeks. Because let's say you have a ticket, right? And I give you 2, Jason, right? I say, okay, here's a 2. These are 3 and 5, or 3 and 3 story points, which should be a whole week. I'll give you 2 weeks to do it. So now you have a deadline in 2 weeks, and you committed and said, yes, I'll get it done in 2 weeks. Okay, you'll get it done in 2 weeks. So now if you don't reach it, then that's on you, right? So then you have a deadline to go off of. And then it's also one where you need to communicate and say, hey, I can only do one. I'm busy at work and family stuff. Cool. We'll move it over. Richard has time. Richard completed all his tasks already. So we'll switch it to Richard so we can load balance and get that going. So there's a lot more fun stuff coming. This is just the beginning. And I will be having one-on-ones with everybody to kind of catch up and see where you guys are at. And then also setting expectations too. That's my fault too. I was really lax about that. So I'm going to set expectations of what's expected from everybody. And then also, I know the end goal was to make this to a SaaS product. So with that expectation is going to be an outline of, okay, if you achieve this, then you get this piece of your equity, right? If you don't, then that part's gone. Then you move on to the next, right? That way you have a goal, you have a deadline, but you also have a goal, right? If I achieve this by this time or whatever, then I get this piece of the equity of the company, because eventually when we start making this a SaaS product and start getting funds, and then all that, we'll start getting funds to disperse and to distribute. So it's a long shot, but at least you have something to shoot for and something to achieve for, right? Opposed to right now, it's I promised it, but it's not written down. We never talked about it. Like, so now I'm gonna come up with that so that we can have formality behind that. Cool. I'm excited for the next steps that are coming up. Definitely take a break this week, this weekend. Next week, I'll start creating some tickets to clean up things. And then I'm going to start working with Jaina to come up with the box for the next phase. I'm pretty sure it's going to take you guys a few weeks to clean things up, which is fine. I mean, if you finish it up earlier, sooner, that's great. If not, then it's okay, because Jane is still going to design all these pages for us. And as that's done, then we'll keep moving forward. How does that sound?
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Sounds awesome.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is the Gridiron Survivor project. I hope that we were able to provide some value for you guys today, and learn some things as well. But again, these individuals are looking for a job. So if you want to interview them, you want to hire them, please come and take them off of this project. Like, I don't want them on this team anymore for good reasons. I do, but take them off. The whole goal is for them to get hired on. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next one.